I thought it might be of help if I make a quick video to basically give you an overview or walk you through that graphic that we've got here, because like we're using that all the time, and maybe this helps you a little bit for the understanding. So what we're talking about here is the stages of a mine. But in order to know where you actually should build the mine, there's a lot of companies that specialize in finding the places where you can actually build it. And this involves lots of stages. And those companies, what they're doing is they're basically making high quality guesses where you should drill the ground. And with this, you find the place where you should build a mine. All they do is basically they drill holes into the ground, analyze it, and they build a 3D model of the ground. And there's different kinds of confidence that you have. How it really looks like, and if you should spend the hundreds of millions to build a facility there and build all the infrastructure to extract the minerals that you've actually got there. So let's jump into the graphic and look at it. I called it a guide to understand 80% of buzzwords. I kind of made this for myself because I was really confused for the first times I heard the presentations of those companies. And now I try to like bring it into a framework to simplify it, to make it more accessible for everybody else that to not have to go through the same struggles that I've had to go through. You start basically with finding a deposit. What does that mean? What do you actually do to do this? You want to find a place that hosts metals, right? How can you do this? You can do this with grassroots exploration, or prospecting, it's also called. You might walk around, pick up stones and that kind of stuff, non-intrusive. That means you're not harming the environment at this point in time. Now, still people like walk around a bit, but this is not how you'd usually do it anymore in current times. So what you would do is you would do surveys, right? What does that mean? There are different kind of surveys that you can do. You can do either geophysics. I call that you do an X-ray of an area, like when you go to the doctor and you broke your bone. And then they're gonna X-ray you or do an MRI, MRT to look through your body, but like it's non-invasive. There's a lot of different kind of stuff how you can do that. You can do it with LiDAR and whatever. You can measure the magnet waves, or you can measure the density, like how heavy is the stuff there. So, I mean, if there's just like usual soil or water, it's going to have a different density like gold. Like if you've ever held like gold or silver in your hand or copper, it's very heavy. And you can basically measure the ground, how heavy it is. If it's different from like all the other sites, then that might be a sign that there actually could be minerals on the ground. Then you can do geochemistry, like take a blood sample. So that means like if you take a rock or water, plants and trees, whatever, and you bring that to a laboratory and then you do chemical analysis, like the doctor, if he takes blood from you, he's going to send that to the lab and they're going to analyze what is it made of, what kind of ingredients are in there. Yeah, to see what's there. You can do that with the rocks on spot. Sometimes you can even see that those rocks are kind of shiny. That's a good sign. But you can do that all with the water. So somewhere around where the river is flowing, upflow the river, there might be something, or trees and plants. In order to do that, often you need a license. You cannot just walk around there. In most countries, you got to get a license for that. And then if you found a place that actually could host metals, then you want to do something more intrusive to the ground, like actually measure it more deeply by disturbing the ground. So that means you're testing the deposit. And then you're not a grassroots explorer anymore, or a prospector, but then you're like an explorer. And to do that, you need permits, right? Because you're going to destroy the environment a bit, or you're going to impact it. And therefore, you have to get permitting to actually drill holes or do trenches. Like it's not a tunnel, but it's a tunnel that is connected to the air outside. So, and then you do bigger samples. And this is where intrusion starts, right? You're actually the ground a little bit. Then next step, advanced exploration. For this, you usually need a more extensive permit, because then you do bulk sampling. And that means you actually stockpile, like literally many of the drills that you're getting out. You really do tons of rock sometimes. Metallurgy tests basically means you send it to the lab to understand if you can actually extract the stuff that is in there, and you want to measure how much gold, how much silver, copper, whatever is in there. So you take that and you send it to the lab, and you also look at the stuff that you have there. Like this is drilling, and you're also getting approvals. And once you've done a good amount of that, that can already cost a lot of money, because this needs lots of energy, you need equipment, you need geologists, a lot of highly specialized people. You want to do more drilling, and this is what I call defining and modeling the resource. There you make sure that there probably is enough in the ground. Now we know that there is something, but usually do that with so-called drilling. Like before, you want to see how far on that earth that I'm looking at here, how far does this go? How big is it? And then if you want to define it further, you do infill drilling. That means like if you have a hole here and that is like, I don't know, 50 or 100 meters, you put something in between. So you've got greater confidence. So what is in between those holes? That is called infill drilling. And if you've done enough holes, you do the so-called resource classification. This basically means you use the insights that you get from the drilling, and you have a person that is analyzing those. This is always led by the QP, the qualified person. It has to be a person that is registered with some boards. That's why it's important, and that you can basically trust the quality of that. And with this, you can get a resource. And this is an important step. The resource can be in 3 different qualities. It can be inferred, it can be indicated, and it can be measured. Inferred, there's still like a good amount of space in between the drill holes, and the confidence of the geology of the exact structure there is still low. With indicated, it's called like reasonable, and with measured, it's high. With measured, you might have like a hole every, 5 meters or something. It depends on the structure and on how similar there is, like if it's like of silver that are very narrow, or if all the core is very much the same structure, then you need less holes. And what do you do then? With this, we know that there is enough in the ground, and we want to find out if we can extract it profitably. We do this by taking the resource and we're applying the so-called modifying factors. What does that mean? We're basically checking if we can extract what we have profitably. So like we know we have enough, but now we're checking, can I get it out for, like how much does it really cost me to get it out? And there's a lot of different stuff involved there. For this, we do lots of technical studies, and we might even do like more geo-surveys. We do like lots of analyzing, and there's a lot of factors we're testing. So we're testing the processing, like how can I process all the ore if I've got it out of the ground? How is the metallurgy? Can I extract the gold? Like if we know there is enough, but can I extract it for a proper price? And then there's legal questions, like do I get all the approvals for that? Environmental, very important part, because you have to prove that you're basically not destroying nature. You have to prove that you don't destroy the habitat of like lots of animals, that kind of stuff. Infrastructure, you need a lot of energy. You need a lot of water too. And what do you do with, because like sometimes you use chemical stuff, and what do you do with it's called tailings, like the stuff that you took out of the ground and you processed it? What do you do with that? Because this might not be good for the environment. So you need to build a structure where you're actually going to put this. And obviously you need social approval, because there's a lot of indigenous populations and you need them on your side. So you kind of need to deal with them, that they're happy. Maybe you help build schools for them or whatever that's going to look like. And obviously there's going to be jobs created, like a lot of jobs for them. But you need to be in close contact with them. They're not just going to trust you blindly. And obviously you need government approval. And you do this by doing studies. If you want to publish a reserve, which is basically a resource where you applied all those factors and have proven or built the model that you can extract profitably. This part is testing the economics. It's making sure you can extract it for more than it costs. I mean, if we know enough stuff in there, can I get it out for less than it costs me to do it? Most companies do a preliminary economic assessment. So you do like a rough study on this thing, if it makes sense to spend all the money that you need to go ahead. And then to actually move something, if you want to publish the data, which you obviously want to do as a company, because this shows the investors that you're doing the right stuff with their money and you're actually going to get something, you need to do a so-called pre-feasibility study or feasibility study to move this from the resource to the mineral reserve. So if you have a resource, you drilled all the holes, you're applying all those economic analysis through conducting those studies, then you eventually can publish a reserve, which then basically says, yeah, okay, we think with high confidence that you can get it out. And as you can see, like here, there is a border here. So inferred cannot become a reserve. You first need to drill more holes and get the stuff from here to like indicated or measured. And then here there's two kind of categories. From indicated, you usually get it to probable, and proven. Like that is just a different amount of certainty that you've got here. And to actually build the mine later on, you need a proper study, because like this costs a lot of money, so you need to get banks involved, and that the banks actually are going to give you money. You need to present them with a study or other financiers. And you do that usually with a feasibility study. And therefore, there's the convention, a name convention called like bankable. If it's bankable, that means a bank it's detailed enough for a bank to use it for their analysis. But this is not like fixed in stone how this should look like. Every bank is gonna look at it differently, but obviously there is best practices and to have it bankable. So then the actual development of the mine. So this step is either going to be done by developers, but this is a step that often also operators, producer are going to do. A lot of companies are not going to do this step anymore, because you do final engineering studies, you get all the financings done. You might get offtake agreements, which means you get a party that for sure is going to buy from you all the stuff you get out of the ground, and permits. So you need to get all the permits done in order to actually be able to build the mine, to construct it. You have to design all the stuff. You need to have a mine plan, especially if it's an underground mine. You need to understand how I'm gonna build it in a way that I can get the big trucks and all the equipment underground. You need to build a mine plan. You need to get the layout for it, and then the tailings and water management. This is what I described before. You need to know where you get the water from and what do you do with it that you don't destroy nature. Very important. And where you put the tailings, like where you put all the rest of the stuff that you cannot sell. Because usually you only use a fraction of it. Like gold, for example, is measured in grams per ton. So for every ton, you only get like a few grams of what do you do with all the rest. That's the tailings management. And yeah, construction is basically you actually build all the stuff that you've designed before, right? Like you design it, then you construct it. That's what you do there. And then you actually have it in operation. Oh, I forgot about the closure plan design. So you actually need to start a mine or to get the permit for constructing it, you need to have a plan how you're gonna wind down the operation in a way that that is okay for the environment. Not destroying all like water supply and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, then if you've constructed it, you can start operating. Then you get like a product. You're in production mining, right? So like you actually now are moving ore out of the ground that you put then into processing. Yeah, separating the ore into the product and waste. Extracting the gold from all the rest. Getting the few grams of gold from the tons of the ore that you're getting out of the ground. That's the processing, and then you sell it, you market it. Like marketing in those kind of terms in the resource sector, if you market it, it's basically you sell it to somebody and deliver it. Yeah, and for processing and selling, for some producers, they do it all by themselves. But it might be that you, if there's another mine close by, you actually gonna send the stuff to them for processing, or you've already got like somebody that, if you've done like an offtake agreement or some financing from a company before, and then you might already have agreed on a fixed price later on. This really depends on how the project is financed and how it works. Yeah, that's the last part. And then once you're done with all that, when there's nothing more in the ground that you can extract profitably, you want to actually, what you usually want to do is you want to drill more holes like on the ground. So you do it outside the mine, right? So like if you've got a mine, you're checking, is there more stuff nearby? So you want to take some of that money that you earn and make sure you're getting more supply to it. But once you're like, okay, I cannot do this at all profitably anymore, then you have to close the mine and you reclaim it. That means like decommissioning, shutting down, reclamation. You might be like replanting trees. You just make sure that nature gets back its land. That's basically what it is. And then you have to monitor it. So like keeping an eye on the site after closure. That could mean like measuring if the water stays clean and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's basically it. I mean, this was the stages of a mine. I hope it helps you to understand 80% of the buzzwords. Took me quite some time. For me, it was a good exercise to create it. I hope it helps you. And yeah, happy to answer any other questions if you've got them. You can contact me if you want a copy of this. And I always try to use this when talking to companies to really understand, okay, in which stage are you, where you want to go. Therefore, I have the activities here because like there's not too many different things that you're actually doing when you have them, right? Like, I mean, you might be in the stage of advanced exploration, right? So you're currently testing the deposit. And if your goal is like to sell it to somebody, your goal might be to like either come here or here. And then for this, there's certain activities you have to do, right? So I mean, like you can ask how much you have to drill to do this, right? Because we got to do drilling for the advanced exploration. We got to do drilling of like the infill drilling. And then we have to get approvals, of course, like this is important. And we have to do studies on those. We have to get the resource. So we have to do lots of analysis work. This might be third parties or internal. So you just know, okay, how much actually we have to spend on that. And then you have to do the technical studies. This could be more geosurveys or just in general more analysis, right? You do those studies, usually get third parties for that. Like how much is that gonna cost? Like how holes you have to drill, how big are they, how much you pay for this, and then obviously technical studies. How much have you drilled? How much does it cost to analyze this roughly? Who's the company you're using to do this? And with that, you basically understand what are the activities, like the inputs needed to get here. And so you can kind of get an understanding what it takes to get here. And what's also a pretty cool question to think about is like, what could be the goal of a company would be to say, okay, I want to get a resource. I want to get here, like I'm in advanced exploration. I want to get a resource of, I don't know, like X million tons. Like I'll get a resource of 2 million ounces, for example, not tons. It depends what you're talking about. Like 2 million ounces for gold is going to be, for example, a pretty good target. And with that, you're here. I have to do activities X, Y, Z to get here. It's going to cost that amount of money. Therefore, I'm raising the amount Y. And then you basically get some milestones and can see if the company is advancing in the kind of way they want to advance. Okay, yeah, hope it helps. As I said, ask me for a copy if you want one, and you can ask me for a coffee too, but I should drink mine. So ask me for a coffee or whatever. And hope this helps. If you've got any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to figure out what you're struggling with, if it helped you, or what kind of questions you would like to have answered by some professional. And I might be able to ask some geologists, some guys that know way more than I do. I'm a finance guy. I build Excel spreadsheets, and I'm just at the beginning of trying to understand all of this. Yeah, but this helped me. Hope it helps you. Have a good one.